Well, hello everyone. Welcome here for another Mythwind live stream. Hey Nathan, how's it going?
Good, good. Happy to be here.
It's great. It is Friday, September the 10th. We are oh, I'm uh, uh I'm trying to think how many days are we from the Kickstarter are we? I think it's like 20
Five?
25 25 days. Actually, you know what? Backer Kit, they have a countdown clock on their launch page. It's 24 days, 20 hours, 52 minutes, and 40 seconds on the dot. Um, that's great. Yeah. So, hey, we're excited to be here. We are going to jump into the questions from last week really soon. We just want to give you a little bit of update where we're at. I'm going to show you a couple kind of fun things and really the crux of what we're doing. It seems that we've been talking to Bryce from Game Trays quite a bit and working on the trays themselves. Let me we 3D printed because here's the reality with game trays. They do such a good job of making the tray themselves, and the measurements are like exact, and so you actually can't replicate that with 3D printing, because how the process in manufacturing goes is that they actually make, I think it's an aluminum or steel mold, of the tray, and then they pour plastic into it, and then they like suck the plastic through, so it's vacuum formed, I think, is the process. Nathan, maybe you know more, but that's
That sounds like a thing I've heard of.
yeah, okay. So yeah, that's my understanding of the process itself, and because of that, you get really exact measurements. You get cool lids and all this stuff. Anyways, we've 3D printed some of the trays for the prototype because this is, we want to show proof of concept, even though these aren't going to be the final thing. So I have here. I'm gonna kind of show it. I think you can see it. Hey Nathan, yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, so this here is the farmer tray, and I'm gonna kind of walk you through. I like the size of it. It's trying to think what's comparable. I don't know. It feels, here's next to an iPhone. Uh, you can read my messages, but here's next to my iPhone.
You need the shut up and sit down reference pair.
Oh yeah, we need the reference pair, but here's the tray, and kind of a really cool thing is that with all of the characters, they get their own unique tray. There's a couple of things that are the same tray to tray, but there's a whole section that's unique for each one. And so let me kind of walk you through what's on the tray. Also, hey, this is just white. This is not the final color. We're still actually finalizing what color we want the trays to be. But this whole area up here, which is the left of the tray, is kind of what we're calling our universal tray area. And so there's an overlay that's going to go over top of it, and it's going to cover up this. It's going to kind of make its way kind of around here. It's going to cover a lot of these sections, because it kind of gives you the actions of what your character does each turn. There's spots for your dice pool, kind of as you recruit workers and sprites. They kind of go up here, and then as you use them, you actually move them into your different actions to kind of supercharge your actions, at least with the farmer. And then we have areas for the skill upgrades that kind of get slot in there, and the storage for the skill upgrades. So there's like a nice kind of little bit of everything. And then we have some just storage up top for the coins that you gather and the polyomino pieces. Because, so that's the universal area. And wait, anything I missed on the universal area, Nathan? I think that kind of covers
No,
it.
you got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it is like you described, where with the overlay, the storage of the skill upgrade tiles will be hidden. So that's only kind of there for when you put the game away. And the overlay will show you the flow of your turn, like you do. A town action flows into a farmer action, flows into like a dice bonus if you do that,
Mm-hmm.
flows into a skill upgrade if you have that in place.
Yeah. Really neat. Really like cool, slick. And then kind of on the right hand side of the tray is the unique element. And for the farmer itself is the polyomino aspect. And so I'm gonna try to zoom in here, so you just so that you can see the ridges. So we got a nice glare. We have these little ridges kind of in the middle where it will help kind of secure the polyomino pieces. And then we have this little bump because if it was flat, it would be really hard to lift the pieces out of there. So the pieces are going to kind of rest kind of right in here, and they're going to kind of morph around and kind of be locked into place, because there's a lot, some of the polyomino pieces are kind of put in and then taken out, but then others are a little bit more permanent as far as upgrades. So we have this really cool, and I don't actually think this has ever been done. And so I'm going to say it's the first time ever that kind of game, like a tray, has been used to make a kind of a persistent element with a polyomino game. I'm playing, is it My City or My Kingdom? I forget what it's called.
The legacy one?
Yeah, the legacy one. I'm playing that with my wife
That's
right now.
My City.
Yeah, and they use stickers to show changes on the board. And so this is a non-destructive way of doing that, and actually have your polyomino pieces carry from session to session. And then kind of what we can't show before manufacturing is that there's going to be a nice slick lid that kind of locks this all into place so that hopefully you can shake it around and nothing falls out.
That non-destructive piece is, to me, kind of the coolest thing about working with game trays, in that we're creating these boards that are storage but are also functional in gameplay and are also savable. Like, they're really a multi-purpose tool for players.
Yeah, the savable piece is like killer for me because, I want players to be able to just literally take off the lid and start playing the game. And I'm excited about that. We've also been batting around, and we're finalizing, actually literally today we're finalizing the crafter tray section. Nathan, maybe, I don't know, do you want to speak about it this week, or should we? No, let's touch base next week, because we'll probably have some physical copies of that to show.
Sure. I mean, I'll just elaborate on the last thought I had, in that that's a piece where when you're using it, the tabs that you have will actually be kind of popping out. So it really looks like a whole different thing than when you put it away, you'll lay them down, kind of a thing. So it's a storage tray that really kind of comes to life a little bit when you are playing the game, and it will feel like you're manipulating something as you're moving your craft items along, kind of a thing. But yeah, we can show that off next week.
Yeah, it is quite exciting because even though, the game plays in essence as a bag builder, I don't think it feels a little bit different because of how the components interact. And so I'm really excited about that. If you're tuning in for a podcast, I'm sorry, because we've just been speaking. You'll have to go and check out the YouTube or Facebook stream to kind of see the stuff. The last thing that I'm going to show before we start telling, I got our miniatures in from our painter Taylor Holloway, and they are looking like freaking cool. We have kind of our sprite miniatures, and they're big. They might be too big. I'm not too sure. But like right now, the characters are kind of huge. They look awesome. Like, I'm showing this now. They look so cool. Really well designed, lots of detail. I think this is like a painter's dream. I'm not much of a painter, but I love when people paint them for me, which has happened here. And so, the characters just look great. And let me reiterate, this is not a miniature game. The core box comes with 4 character miniatures. And Nathan and I went back and forth about this a little bit during development. And for me, the real thing of including the character miniatures, like, hey, this game, you take the role of a character, and there's a lot of like worker placement elements to it. But I just didn't want people moving around a wooden meeple to represent their worker. I wanted this guy. I wanted the farmer to be just kind of little potbelly, but and a little grumpy. I wanted to move him around, so I think it's gonna actually just be, it's just cool. Oh yeah, let me show.
When I see those, I think you made the right choice.
And then look at these guys flip. This is by far my favorite, but oh man, the little rock dudes. So cool. Did I miss? Oh yeah, I missed the swampy dude. This is cool. I don't know. I like our, couple things. Our artist, Dan Wang, did an incredible job kind of creating these sprites and the characters. Fantastic. And then our 3D modeler, Nicholas Hein, we worked with him on Stars of Icarios and loved working with him. And so we got him snatched up for Mythwind, and he's gotten even better at this 3D modeling. And so it's been like he was already good, but to see kind of his skills improve how they have has been a joy. That's cool. I don't know if people are commenting, but feel free to comment. Cody Irwin on Facebook. How long till we can order this board game? October 5th. It's coming up soon. I think I mentioned that. We're 24 days and counting. So it is coming up. All right, for the last few minutes here, I'd love to kind of go through some questions. Nathan, do you got the questions pulled up?
I do, yeah.
All right, go for it.
Okay, so I'll start with first question is I'd love to know more about how you can go on adventures or how the hired sprites and human settlers work. So I assume that means like the hired sprites and worker die, like those
Yeah.
that dynamic. So there's two different questions there. The adventures is one of the five kind of main actions you can take in town. From purely a mechanical perspective, it was important to have an action that doesn't have any requirements to do. You can always just go on an adventure if you decide to go on an adventure. And that's where you will have some kind of experience. There's an adventure deck, and you're going to read it. And usually what will happen is you'll be left with a choice, and then you flip the card over, and you'll see what happens with your adventure. You made a choice, and what's the outcome going to be. And those ramifications hopefully will be very far-reaching and will be felt later in the game. I don't know how much we want to give away, but for example, you might have some kind of encounter, and part of that encounter is shuffle a card into the event deck pile. So the ramifications for that may show up at a later point, and you'll know that thematically to be connected to that adventure you just had. But it's also like a thing where we'll use it to, maybe affect like a building that might become available to you, or I mean, really anything in the game could be manipulated by it because an adventure should be unpredictable as far as what can happen to you.
Yeah, you may or may not discover a fishing location, I think, on an adventure. Is that too much of a spoiler? Who knows? Wink, wink, nudge,
Yeah,
nudge.
I mean, that's pretty early.
It's pretty. That's what I was thinking. It's pretty early.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Part two of the question is about how the hired sprites and workers work, and so they really, you're going to want to get help in a lot of different ways. And Brendan just showed the tray and how certain dice can supercharge actions or can provide you additional benefits. The benefits they provide you are different depending on the role that you have,
Mm-hmm.
but you'll find that sprites will help in certain ways and workers will help in other ways. And thematically, you'll tend to find that workers will be more helping with industrious type things, maybe more around like inventiveness, that kind of a thing. And sprites will be more nurturing, more cultivating, more in tune with like the land, that kind of thing, culture. And so thematically, those are the kind of the arenas they'll more likely impact, what they'll impact. But for example, with the farmer, they're usually going to allow you to do an action twice, essentially, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And with the crafter, there's actually a couple of different options. They'll either allow you to draw, or to work more on certain types of items, or they'll allow you to try to figure out how to word this properly. They'll allow you to complete the work on different kinds of items, but they'll also allow you to bring more work into your workshop. I'm talking very broadly because I don't have the example of the crafter kind of available for people to look at yet. But that's the point, is that basically they let you do more. That's one way that you can really ramp up your production as a crafter or a farmer, or and right now working out exactly what that looks like for the merchant or the woodsman.
Yeah, I think a good way to kind of think of the sprite and worker dice is it's kind of like the engine building component of Mythwind. So in all the good engine builders, you get this kind of good ramp up of like, okay, you can do more on your turn. And that's really what the dice allow you to do. They kind of supercharge, let you do more on your turn. So you get a good kind of powerful sense of, okay, my character is growing. And the not all of the workers and sprite are available on day one. This is actually kind of really reflective of how the town grows and kind of the ebbs and flow of the town. There's going to be, workers coming and then workers going, and sprite are maybe attracted because you built a cool monument, but maybe they leave because you, I don't know, clear cut the nearby forest. Like who knows, right? And so you get this real ebb and flow of worker and sprite dice that are available, and it's kind of a collective pool in town that all of the players can contribute or can grab from. But the number will change. And that's kind of another kind of, I guess, key factor in your overall community's health is like, okay, how many sprite are around, how many workers are available, and so those are some key things. But yeah,
That's sort of answers another question I've seen around, not specifically that's coming up here, but some people have asked like what changes in the town as it grows and prospers and so on. And that's definitely one of the main things, is like how many like the amount of dice that are available, and how your town is growing will affect, like you might have way more workers than sprites or vice versa, depending on how you're going about building the town. So that's definitely a clear indicator of your choices.
yeah.
And I guess like one other cool feature that might be worth mentioning too is just the fact that they're not all the same. Like the dice are going to be valued from 1 to 3, and sometimes when you hire a die, it's going to be at 3. Sometimes it'll be at 1, and obviously the higher the number, the more frequently you're going to be able to use it. So there are better workers than others, and some of the things you do will discourage workers, so they'll reduce their value. Some things will encourage them, so it'll increase their value. So it's just like another dynamic to make them a little bit distinct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's great. So Res 999 on YouTube is currently asking, hello, could we know how many adventure and event cards there will be in the game? So I'm going to answer that in a couple different ways. The first way I want to answer that is this is an area that's kind of a point of growth and ebb and flow. Currently in the core box, we have I'm just pulling up my quote here just to make sure I get the numbers right. We have 160 event cards and 80 adventure cards. This is just currently in the core box, so kind of a combined 240 cards. We are planning on doing a free, kind of free mini expansion as a stretch goal for all our Kickstarter backers, which will include more events and more adventure cards. And then also, if players buy the fifth character expansion, which either increases your player count to 5 or just adds another player or character that you can use, we'll have more event and more adventure cards in there. So a decent chunk of story and a decent amount of adventures that you can go on. All right, jumping into another question here from last week. Something that I like to hear more about would be the comparison between early game and end game states, as in how different could someone's game look at the beginning of the game versus someone who has seen most of the cards and tiles. Endgame doesn't really work well as a term for a continuous game, but I wasn't certain what other term to use. Okay, early game and end game. I think that's a fine way to put it. With the asterisk that end game, I think, is in constant kind of ebb and flow. And so if you've played kind of persistent world games, a couple that come to my mind, like Destiny or World of Warcraft or Animal Crossing or Stardew Valley, yeah, you kind of know that you get to a point where you've seen all the content, but oftentimes people still have fun kind of playing in that world where even though they know everything, sometimes they'll kind of restart from the beginning and make their whole way through again. But what inevitably happens is that more content is released or more content is added, and this is what I mentioned before about our Winds of Magic mini expansion is this sense of like, okay, there's just more content that kind of expands the game, expands the story. And so a couple key ways that the game looks very different from the beginning to kind of a late game would be what we were mentioning before with the sprite. And so two things. Let's talk about the town first, and then Nathan, maybe you can speak a little bit about character development. But the town development, we have a couple main areas. The first is the growth of your sprites and your workers. Okay, so how many sprites, how many workers are available to you? The second kind of main area would be what actions are available to you on the town. So we have around 15 empty slots on the town where you can build buildings, and the buildings either provide you a passive or an active benefit, right, where you have to land on it to trigger it. And these will grow and shape and upgrade. Some buildings, I believe, like we have you have to kind of tear one building down so you can put up a new building, so they replace and kind of the buildings level up. So you get this real sense of like, oh wow, the actions that I can do each turn are more, but also like the passive benefits that I get at the end of the season are more. Right, at the end of the season I get free production, free culture because of the buildings I built. So you get this whole sense of town, right? Your population's increased, your buildings have increased, and that's kind of the main ways that you'll see a difference between kind of beginning and late game would be your available options in the town. And then Nathan, maybe speak to the character development a little bit there.
Yeah, I'll talk about the farmer specifically because they were the first role. I feel like in a way they're probably the most realized. Um, but when you start as the farmer, you don't have any of the dice there. You don't have any skill upgrades in place, and your farm itself has got a lot of can't remember what we're calling it, but basically it's a much smaller version. You actually start putting polyominoes on the board there at the beginning of the game that are basically like a uncultivated land, sort of like a shrubbery and all that kind of stuff, things that you need to clear away in order to create farmland. So as the game goes on, your farmland gets bigger. You're going to be hiring people to help you work faster. You're going to have those skill upgrades in place. But you're also going to be buying, I think we're calling them farm upgrades or equipment. And you're also going to be buying livestock to run that equipment, kind of a thing. So as the game goes on, you're kind of building this machine that it always costs you money to kind of keep on improving this stuff. So you have this sort of cycle of like, okay, I'm making my farm bigger, and I'm harvesting more crops, and I'm creating more room for this other stuff I need to buy, which makes me better at planting more stuff and harvesting more stuff. And so it's sort of this cycle. And so like late in the game, you've probably eventually cleared off all your farmland, but you're still needing to maybe get more livestock or more equipment or figure out that perfect balance. So I think because it costs money to complete a lot of stuff, there's sort of this 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing. And that'll be true for the crafter as well, because you're adding different craft items to the bag all the time, and so depending on the actions you're doing, you're really deciding like kind of what you're focused on and what kind of things you're going to be working on more often. And as you build your reputation and so off, some of those tokens go away, so all of a sudden the balance in your bag has shifted. So those two early roles we have, they both have this sort of cyclical thing where it's like, okay, I'm building up and building up. Okay, I'm spending some of what I have in order to get better. Now I got to build up and build up and build up, and now I have to spend some more to get better. So, that's the arc really for both of those roles. You just kind of get there in very different ways because the mechanics are different.
Yeah, no, that's great answer. Nathan, I have one more question here that I want to do today, unless you have a question already queued up.
No, go
Okay,
for
so
it.
this is a longer one, but I think it touches on multiple big questions that I know lots of people have. So one of the things that interests me the most would be to try all the roles and switch characters every few sessions. As I understand, the game isn't designed to have multiple save states for a role. So, for example, my girlfriend and I each have our own version of all 4 roles that we change between sessions. Of course, we couldn't play the same character at the same time. Can we reset the roles before playing to another state? If we take photos, for example, so that we can have an example, each have our own version of the farmer. How long do you think this would take to do it? Would there be any problems with balancing? Since every single role would be leveled up at a far slower pace, would we see everything all the roles have to offer by the time the events and story comes to an end? So a lot going on there, but kind of to summarize the question again, is that we have these 4 roles. Right now we're designing it so that it saves the current state of a singular character, right? Once you start as the farmer, that farmer is the farmer until you kind of reset the farmer. And so the question asker is asking whether or not they can switch, hot swap between roles and then restart and then, pick up where they left off, even though they've restarted the role. Let me kind of address some of that stuff. First off, we have not made an easy way, or we have not built it into the game mechanics so that you can do that. And by that I mean we just, because we're not, you're not like writing stuff down. You don't have like a piece of paper that has your save state. Like your save state is literally in here in the board. And so because that is the save state, we have plans just for the one character to be saved through a session of Mythwind. But with that said, you're asking about whether or not you can just take a photo and then have that as your save state. And I would say absolutely yes. There might be a few key pieces of information that you wanna capture, right? Like what skills does your character have unlocked, and then really the photo kind of captures the sense. And same thing with the crafter. What items are in the bag? Where are the items kind of in their journey? What skills they have. And so I think those things are easy enough to kind of capture. And I would be open. I'm not too sure if I want to do this because I don't know if it would get used enough. But I would be open to the potential of providing kind of downloadable printable PDFs or something where players could just like sketch out their current character save state, and then restart from that character. I don't know if that's necessary, but I'd be open to kind of talking through that. And
As you asked the question, I literally made the note here. Should we have a notepad for players if they want to like save separately or something, so they can track
yeah,
what skill upgrades they have or what have you? I think a photo is certainly suitable. It's not like a elegant in-game solution, and doing that with something like the crafter is a bit trickier because you've got this bag full of tokens you need to track. But the woodsman actually would be super easy to do that with. The farmer would be fairly easy to do that with. It's not something that's been on our mind, I think, in the design process, but it might be something to can keep in mind as we continue to develop.
And I think if we hear enough, that's a pretty easy solution, or easy action item. And then the second question was like, hey, if we do that, does that mess up balancing? No, it doesn't, because the game kind of progresses with the characters, and it doesn't necessarily matter what level the character's on. If one of the characters is at a higher level than another character, then yeah, sure, they might contribute more to the overall progress of the town, but the town's still kind of being contributed, right? You're working towards the town together, so it's like, I look over at Nathan and he's doing twice as much as me. Oh, that's okay. I'm still enjoying my character and I'm playing him well. Whether or not you would finish the game exactly as all the content kind of unlocks, I don't think this is something that we can promise anyway, because there's just too many ways to play the game. Like you could literally play all of Mythwind and only go on an adventure once. And that is in the tutorial when we tell you go on an adventure. And you could literally not touch the adventure action for the rest of the game, and you have a deck of 59 cards still waiting to be used. And you know your whole character's leveled up. You've unlocked all the towns, all the stuff, right? Um, and you know you've still missed some parts of the game, but you haven't gone on an adventure. So because of all the ways of playing, and just recognizing that some people are like optimizers and some people aren't, right? Some people will be able to do twice as much in fewer days just because their brain's wired that way. But because it's, you know, not competitive, I think as a cooperative journey, it'll be fun regardless. So the pace of progress may look, it just will look different for every game. And honestly, this is one of the questions Nathan and I we met last week talking about this very thing. What is the pace of story unlocks? And it's gonna be something that honestly, it's, you know, we're gonna have the whole story, we're gonna have all the cards, everything. And this is going to be the piece that we're tweaking till the end, right? We want there to be a steady kind of feed of information and new content, new material, but we don't want it to be, you know, we don't want it becoming like super quick, right? So we want to have this this good pacing, and it's going to be a feel thing that we figure out over the next few months.
Yeah, we don't want to have like a. It's the thing I've been wrestling with all along, where we have this game with no fixed endpoint. So that means how much content do we put in there, and how long do we want to stretch it out, and how quickly do we want the tap to run dry, that kind of a thing. So, um, yeah, it's probably a thing that we'll continue to go back and forth on right up until everything goes to the printer, I imagine. And even then, I'm sure we'll probably have lots of like expansion ideas, thoughts. We've got more ideas now than we can possibly put in a core box. So, um, I imagine that the long-term answer is that there will always be kind of more content we can put in there. But for the core box experience, it's figuring out exactly what kind of is the right amount.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's great. So I just want to leave us with a couple. I want to answer a couple of YouTube questions from Rez again, and then we can peace out. But Rez is asking a little bit about the booster packs. Are they extra from the core box? You know, just what about the booster packs? So we are only going to have one kind of like Pokemon booster pack. With it's going to be the same set of event and adventure cards, combo in between 5 and 10 cards. And it's going to be our kind of gift to our Kickstarter, to our first Kickstarter backers. And so, hey, if you're signing up now, you'll be able to receive that kind of free of charge. And then for those who kind of missed the window, it's going to be available for a fairly low fee. Not 100% sure, but probably just a couple bucks. And so that is kind of our gift. It's going to be Kickstarter exclusive. We might have a couple of those for promos. But then we're not going to do kind of booster packs outside of that. We'll have like a mini expansion and a 5th player expansion. The Winds of Magic mini expansion will be a kind of a stretch goal. We're thinking that will be unlocked with the Kickstarter, so that will be free for all of our Kickstarter backers, and it'll be purchasable after the campaign for those who missed out. And then we have so that kind of answers that. And then lastly, can you confirm about other languages for the game, or still in discussions? We are in active discussions with multiple partners. And I think that's probably where I can leave it. Active discussions with multiple partners, and excited about the possibilities of bringing this to as many languages as possible, to as many worlds as possible. No, that's not a thing. To as many areas of the world as possible. Cool. Any final words for us, Nathan?
No, I don't think so. It's as we get closer to the Kickstarter, um, it's a milestone and a mini deadline, and it's kind of fun having to like commit to certain aspects of this so that we can present it to people. But the more we make decisions, the more it also kind of leads to like more like ideas and other questions. So I'm also like, I feel like I'm excited about the post Kickstarter life of this development as well, because I think that there's just so many dynamic avenues to pursue in Mythwind. I can't think of a better way to say it, but anyways, yeah, no, it's exciting.
Yeah, that's fantastic. All right, everyone, thanks for joining. We are thrilled to be on this journey with you. Again, if you have any questions, sound off in Discord. Board Game Geek, we had a pretty active discussion on there this past week, or Facebook group. Love having you with us, and we are getting ready for October 5th, the Kickstarter launch.